Hey YouTubers, it's Charlie. So a lot of you guys requested a video on the Horn of Winter and Dragonbinder, a couple of the enchanted horns in Game of Thrones, just the two that we've heard about. Since we haven't seen Dragonbinder on the show, I'm going to talk about that second. I'll do like a special spoiler warning, so if you don't want to hear about that, you can. On the flip side of that, the show has done a version of the Horn of Winter as it's described in the book, so we'll just start with that. If you don't remember the Horn of Winter, it was kind of an offhanded thing. People kind of expected it to be a really big deal because Mance Rayder hyped it up big time. We as readers and as show watchers learn about it as Mance Rayder is talking to Jon Snow about it. He tells Jon that he's going to blow it and it will bring the wall crashing down. But as we can see, Mance Rayder got put to the torch. That did not happen. The Horn of Winter is actually known as the Horn of Yoruman. Yoruman was just one of the ancient kings beyond the wall. It's about 8 feet long, and it's supposed to be like so big, the horn itself, like the outer rim is supposed to be so big that Jon can fit his arm in from about the elbow to the tip of his knuckles in. So you get an idea for how big it's supposed to be. The closest we got on the show is Samwell and a couple of the other brothers of the Night's Watch finding this horn wrapped up with a bunch of dragon glass, so clearly much smaller than the one that's described in the books. Suddenly you can hear the air being let out of a balloon somewhere. This might have been the show telling us that the Horn of Winter is a complete bullshit legend. It has gold bands with runes of the First Men drawn all over it. Mance says that it supposedly woke the giants from the earth whenever it was blown, and he told the story about it being able to bring the wall crashing down because the wall is enchanted. The books haven't really explained specifically what those enchantments are, or like the mechanics behind them, only that there is power. But it all kind of seemed like it ended up going nowhere. George R. R. Martin seemed like he was hyping it up, then it gets destroyed, and in the context of the show, they just present this broken horn, like it doesn't even look like it works. So I think it's a good example of legends with a lot of half-truths in the Game of Thrones universe. Like, yes, this was probably a big thing, it's very special, there are some magical properties, but it's not quite as special as you think it is. George R. R. Martin is a big fan of Tolkien, but it's not like the Ring of Power, where you see something, they say it's special, and it ends up being the most special thing ever. Martin is also a big geek on real-world history, so it's like saying some ancient Roman artifact was really, really special, but you see it in real life and it's like, well, it's really shiny, but it doesn't seem like it's super powerful like everyone said it was. If you remember at the end of Season 4, whenever the wildlings were marching on the wall, Mance Rayder was trying to take his army through the wall. When that happened in the books, there was just the threat of the horn, and obviously everything kind of went down in a similar way. And Tormund Giantsbane is thinking to Jon, if only I had the horn, things would have gone very, very differently. You guys would have been sorry. And Jon kind of wonders to himself if maybe Mance Rayder was lying about the horn. Is there a real Horn of Winter out there somewhere that just hasn't been found yet? So it's possible that there is a Horn of Winter somewhere in the north that is capable of bringing the wall down, and the one that we saw in the books and the one that we saw in the show is not that true horn. You guys can let me know, do you feel like the Horn of Winter is an actual real thing? Like, do you feel like it exists and Mance Rayder just had something that was not the Horn of Winter? Or do you think it's Martin just messing with us a little bit? Do you think it's actually not a real thing? Most of the legends that we've seen, like the old Nan's legends, for instance, have actually come true in certain ways. I mean, not all of them so far, but as far as we've seen the White Walkers, we've seen the Night's King. So most of the time, it seems like the legends on Game of Thrones that are told are at least half true. Usually, people just misinterpret things, which kind of fits with Martin's theme of the story being true to life. I do definitely think that the wall will come crashing down sometime during the series, probably not till like season 8. But I don't think it's going to be as simple as the Night's King just like riding up with a giant horn and blowing it and just bringing it crashing down. I feel like it's going to be much more complicated than that. That would definitely suck if the Night's King had the actual Horn of Winter. But given that it's a device that was supposedly designed by the First Men, you'd think that it would be harmful to White Walkers, so they wouldn't be able to use it. It'd be like them trying to use a Valyrian blade, like it would probably burn their hands. That's another interesting thought too, because just because it has golden bands on it doesn't necessarily mean that the runes are Valyrian steel. Valyrian steel itself doesn't really have color, like it just looks like other steel. You can add color to it. Dragonbinder is an entirely different matter though, so let's move on to that. So just careful for spoilers for Euron Greyjoy in the books. This is something that the show has skipped over. We might see it in season 6, but where we are in the books right now, like the show has already passed that. Like it's part of the Ironborn storyline that the show skipped. So in book 4, we learn about the dragon horn. Now, this is a horn called Dragonbinder by Euron Greyjoy. He claims he found it in the smoking ruins of ancient Valyria. So like the place where Jorah and Tyrion went in season 5. He just claims he found it there. We didn't actually see him go there. He just shows up and starts talking about it, like, look at this awesome thing that I found down in the ruins of ancient Valyria. It's not quite as big as the Horn of Winter, but it's still really big. It has Valyrian glyphs all over it that glow red whenever you blow the horn. The way Aeron Greyjoy describes it is actually really cool. He says, bright and baneful was its voice, a shivering hot scream that made a man's bones seem to thrum within him. It is the horn of hell. He's just saying that the sound that the horn makes is really scary. It's meant to be heard by dragons, so of course it sounds kind of weird. As of right now, it is completely untested. Like, no one has tried to blow it in the vicinity of a dragon. As the characters talk about it, the ancient Valyrians use the horns to control dragons, like you would use a dog whistle. It seems like the show is casting Euron Greyjoy. There's definitely a pirate character that sounds like him, so we might see a version of Dragonbinder on the show. But thus far, there haven't been a whole lot of enchanted items that the books have talked about. The show just typically skips over them. The most enchanted things that we've seen so far are like the Valyrian swords, like when Jon is fighting the White Walkers. What I'm hoping is that as the show gets into season 6, 7, and 8, like as it slowly starts moving to the climax, we start seeing more and more powerful magic. But it stands to reason, being a Valyrian horn, that the power behind Dragonbinder might be related to the Red God, and because the Horn of Winter was built by the First Men, its power might be tied to the Old Gods, which I still consider to be separate entities. There are a lot of theories that in Game of Thrones, the many different gods that people talk about are just different ways of describing a single or like one or two gods. Like maybe the many-faced god is the same thing as the Red God, or the Great Other for that matter. That's just something to think about as the show moves into season 6. I still consider a lot of the gods to be different. Different types of magic exist, so it stands to reason that there are also probably different types of gods. So here's a really big question for you guys. If the show does do Euron Greyjoy, if that ends up being a thing, do you think that we'll see a version of the dragon horn on the show? Like, will they start finding artifacts in ancient Valyria, or will they start turning up? Daenerys' dragons do seem like they're going a little bit crazy, like getting a little bit out of control, but as we saw with Daenerys and Drogon, she still has a very strong connection to him. So it's completely possible that the show could just skip over the dragon horn. Or if we do see a dragon horn, it would just be like a visual Easter egg. It'd just be like a, pile of Valyrian gifts that someone brings her. Usually the show tries to be kind of economic with the things that it does, like the stories that it tells. So if Daenerys is already able to control her dragons, with her mind link, like the bond that she has with them, then what does she need a horn for? The story of the books is a little bit different, like the direction it's going with Euron Greyjoy, Victarion, the Ironborn people. So we'll see how Winds of Winter plays out. But if George R. R. Martin finishes it in time, we'll actually be able to compare Winds of Winter with season 6 episodes. As far as we know, Dan and Dave don't have any idea what goes on in Winds of Winter. They have a general idea of where the characters are headed. I know a lot of you guys ask like how I think the show is going to end compared to the books. I think that they'll end in relatively similar ways. It'll be that bittersweet Return of the King ending that George R. R. Martin talked about. Like he actually said that he's a big fan of the way Tolkien ended Lord of the Rings. It's not going to end in like a giant big shawarma Avengers moment. Just a quick reminder though, new round of the giveaway, all you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and leave a comment on this video. Because this video is posting a day late, my Game of Thrones Q&A will just post tomorrow. But I am working on a Q&A for all the big Marvel stuff that happened over the weekend, like Captain America, Civil War, and Doctor Strange, so that will post next. While you guys wait for that, it seems like we may have gotten some unofficial confirmation of Tower of Joy in Season 6. So if you don't know what the Tower of Joy is in the Game of Thrones universe, you can click here to learn all about that, and you can click here to learn all about Arthur Dayne, because it seems like the show is going to do him too. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Let's high five. I'll see you guys tonight.